So I was with one of the, well, I think it's the largest healthcare system or nursing home system in our state last Thursday. And actually, when I was sitting in the meeting talking to their nurses and their staff, somebody looked at their phone and said that at that moment, when the president came out and said CMS would no longer fund Medicaid, Medicare for those who are not vaccinated.
So I'm going to just turn it over to Congressman Hern. There is not a harder working congressman in Congress. This man is working day and night. I can tell you that I have been in his office in D.C. in the evening and then met him for breakfast at 7 o'clock the next morning. So he's a hard-working congressman. He's doing a great job, and we're so glad that you represent us.
Thanks, Rhonda. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
How many veterans do we have in the room? Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for what you've done, what you did, and for why you did it. I really appreciate you all. And, you know, a tragic day yesterday, and it was really senseless. We can talk more about that in Q&A. I just wanted to point out that any of you all know Jane Horton?
Yes.
And Chris Horton?
Yes.
Chris was from a Wasso sniper that was killed in Afghanistan about 8 years ago now, 9 years ago. I'm trying to remember how long ago it's been.
I think he was killed on 9/11 too.
September 7th.
September 7th, okay.
Yeah, the reason I say that is Jane led the Gold Star families for President Trump. Quite frankly, there really wasn't an organized group or a leader in that in the White House, and she put it all together. I actually talked to her on Wednesday. I was in D.C. and I talked to her, and then yesterday happened, and 13 more families in America are now Gold Star family members. It's tragic. Let's come back to Afghanistan. I know you all are watching this feverishly across multiple channels, social media. I want to talk about a couple of things that's happened, and they're all around the ridiculous leadership. It's not lack of leadership. You know, leadership, you either have it or you don't, but the Democrats are leading us down a pathway. I don't think anybody in America could have seen what's happened, could have seen what's going to happen and had happened in the first 7 months of President Biden's presidency. Interesting enough, if you think about it, we have crisis going on one after another. Energy crisis, a border crisis, inflation crisis, and now an Afghanistan crisis. One after another after another. And the sad thing about all of those is they're all self-inflicted on the American people.
That's right.
Yep. You think about it, energy crisis. That's the first thing he did after he got inaugurated. He went to the White House and unraveled the Keystone Pipeline. He just acquiesced on Nord Stream 2, which brings gas out of Russia into Germany and creates a major dependency there. Something that, I don't know if you all know this, but Nord Stream 1 was what Ronald Reagan used to tear down the wall. Mm-hmm. That's how he brought the dependency out of East Germany on Russia and brought Germany as a whole, and that's why it tore down the wall with Gorbachev. So that pipeline has strategic issues with going forward in the EU and how our partners in the European Union work together. If you look at the border crisis, I've been down there twice. You can't even imagine. The drones you see, all the things going on, you can't even imagine how bad it really is. And when you look at I was there on May of 2019. I was there 2 months ago, but bless you. I was there on May 2019, and the reason it's a really interesting month, that was the last month of what was extraordinarily high crossings, about 132,000 as I recall. And the next month it dropped down to about 30, 40, and kept dropping. The reason that was a big month is because President Trump and all of the folks working on this, Kevin McAleenan and others, were pushing policies about stopping people from starting the journey out of Central America, out of the Northern Triangle, and starting that trek across Mexico. Because what most people don't understand is that the people we're seeing come into the United States are not Mexicans, because they go right back, they get sent right back across the border. These are people from the countries. They're not seeking asylum in their countries. They're not seeking asylum in Mexico, which is the next safe country. And oh, by the way, a majority of the people are from South America, who've journeyed through Central America. They're people from Yemen, bad people. 162 countries in all that have been, we've caught people of nationalities. Then you also look at the inflation crisis. This is excessive spending that the Democrats have done. And they have full control of the House. They have full control of the Senate through Kamala's tie-breaking. And then obviously Joe Biden will sign whatever's put in front of him. And now Afghanistan. A series of bad decisions, which is why I said what I did yesterday. I said it again this morning on Fox 23. I'm sure I'll say it again on Channel 2 here in a little bit, is a call for his resignation. We can't have a leader jeopardizing the sovereignty of this nation, the credibility of this nation around the world. We just can't have that happen. There's a whole series. When you start looking at what that entails, him resigning, who takes over, it's tragic, because we have a person that's in the vice presidency, Vice President Harris, who laughed this week in her Asian trip when asked to talk about Afghanistan, laughed. And I said yesterday in my statement, do you think it's funny now? Do you think it's funny now? She laughed about the southern border when 212,000 people crossed the southern border in July. This is one of the saddest moments in American history for leadership in this country. It's ran by State Department, by people in the intelligence community that were under President Obama that allowed Benghazi to happen. We've got a real tragedy in America. I've been on 2 unclassified calls, a classified hearing that we spent 90 minutes with on Tuesday, and I will tell you about the classified briefing as much as I can, obviously without giving away any secrets, but I'll tell you about the mood. I've been to several of these. These are the highest classifications of security that you can have in the United States. It's top secret SCI, which is secure compartment information, which means that even if you have a top secret, you can't go in this. Every member of Congress has one. I know that's shocking. But I will tell you this also. I've been pretty impressed since I've been in Congress that even the craziest of the crazy members that are there have not shared information and intelligence out of those briefings. So at their core, they still understand that they can go to prison for sharing that. But one of the things that was most interesting, of all those briefings I've been in since I've been in Congress, not quite 3 years, this was the first one. Because what happens is we get a briefing, and so in that room we had Director of National Intelligence Haynes, a lady, I can't pronounce her first name, and then we had Secretary Blinken, Secretary Austin, Joint Chief Mark Milley, and then Secretary Mayorkas. And then we have the respective chairs, McCall, and I don't know the other gentleman's name. But the reality is that when you get done hearing all their talk, then you get a chance to step up to the microphone. There's 2 aisles, and it's kind of first come, first serve. And then they kind of bounce back and forth, starting Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. I assure you that if you closed your eyes, you couldn't have told the difference between a Democrat and Republican speaking in there. Everybody was outraged at the direction of the political maneuvering that this administration has made in Afghanistan. I will also tell you there was zero blaming of President Trump in this, among all the cabinet members that were there, and by the Joint Chief. But it was also very clear that this is completely political. An arbitrary date of September 11th, and let me just say this. This notion that Joe Biden believes that President Trump's policies are what he's executing. I mean, he destroyed our energy policy, our border policies, economic policies. He's gone back and telling Iran we want to negotiate with the JCPOA, getting rid of this whole thing that we did of unwinding it. It's like Secretary Pompeo said. We inherited a bad deal on Iran. We undid it. We inherited a red line in Syria, and we sent 52 Tomahawks in. We inherited a bad deal in North Korea, and we dealt with that. Stopped the firing of missiles over the South China Sea. Every administration, by the very nature of our country, whether it's a 4-year term or an 8-year term, there are going to be policies left over by the previous president. The new administration ran on undoing those policies. And then he also knows that the American people overwhelmingly for the last, I would say since the increase in wanting to move out of Afghanistan has continued to grow since Osama bin Laden was killed. Americans are wanting to bring their boys home, the girls home, but do it the right way. And President Trump knew that. He was the person that moved the first time on this. And as I said this morning on Fox News, on Channel 23, Fox News here, if you stood President Trump side by side with Joe Biden, and both of them made the statement that I will find you and I will kill you. Who would you believe? Yeah, who would you believe? The guy that put his head down? The guy who had to read from a teleprompter what he was going to say versus a guy like Donald Trump that was speaking from his heart. If you have to have your messages prepared on an event like this, and to finally say in the Q&A section, I was instructed to ask these people the questions in this order? Does that mean you had the question before and you had the answer written down to say? I mean, this is a really sad day in America. We've all known this. As a matter of fact, interesting enough, you read the Tulsa World today, you ever read this day in history stuff? Because it's kind of fascinating. You kind of wonder where you were and you didn't realize you're as old as you are. Today, I think it was today, this is when President Trump said about Joe Biden, because this is the day I think President Trump accepted the nomination for re-election. This is the day he said on the South Lawn that if Joe Biden's elected, America will be unsafe.
That's right.
How little did we know? How little did we know? 2 years later. So I just, you know, we look at the budget, what's going on. We came back to D.C. not to talk about what's going on, the travesty of the unraveling of 20 years and leaving like a dog with our tail between our legs because we've got such bad policy going. The military is not driving this. I can tell you right now, the military is executing a mission that they've been given by the State Department. The State Department's in control. That was completely evident and said so by numerous people, not just the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and the Joint Chief. They're executing a mission that they've been put forth to do, which is secure the perimeter with 5,000 soldiers so that we can get all of our Americans out. Now, we heard yesterday the president say, we're going to try to get them out. But we're going to find you. We're not going to have any military to do it. So if he's actually going to keep his word, we're going to put even thousands more back in to go find, because we can't just send in special operators without having support. It's a long ways from anywhere for those of you that have been to Afghanistan. I have not, but my understanding it's at least 7 hours away by any military transport to get people into Kabul in a very hostile environment. And then finally, I'll say this, you know, we went back to D.C. and we pleaded with the Speaker to put on the floor the transparency of understanding how many Americans were in Afghanistan. Mike Gallagher, former intelligence officer, very smart guy. We asked to vote on this bill. You had all these Democrats standing up saying, we need to know, we got to get Americans out. And these are military men and women that were Democrats. There are several. They were calling on the president to do this. Not one of them voted for this bill. This bill would have required that the administration report to Congress every day what's the population and how many are left. Instead, the administration chose to give the list of Americans, that same information, to the Taliban and not to Congress. I mean, this decision, it's like General Jack Keane said, the debacle of decisions, one after another, is really sad day for America. Instead, we go back and vote on basically $5 trillion worth of spending. It passed exactly on party lines, 220 to 212. And now we're moving forward. I have something like 6 12-hour day sitting in front of a Zoom starting next week on Ways and Means, talking about how we're going to raise taxes on the American taxpayers. I didn't say anything about 400,000 because this is a tax increase on everybody in America, everybody. Because the reality is it's going to take all of that plus the debt associated with it. It's also, and it's going to be cradle to grave welfare now across multiple fronts. And then also the infrastructure bill was rolled in together with that, another 1.2 trillion, which of about 200 to 300 billion is infrastructure. And to give you a perspective of that, on December 4th, 2015, the largest infrastructure bill in history was passed. 2015, 6 years ago, not even 6 years ago, it was $305 billion. And this one is 1.2 trillion. And when you look at the amount of money that's being set aside to create electric gas stations, if you will, it's kind of an oxymoronic thing, but electric stations across America to fuel the cars that represent about 2% of the American population of cars. And the American government essentially is going to build convenience stores with electrical charging station. You all are going to build them everywhere, California, Washington, New York, with your taxpayer dollars and mortgage the future of your children.
Not me.
You're not going to see me?
I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not paying. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not paying.
So this is the craziness that's going on, and I could talk about the budget that I did. I can talk about multiple things when it comes to the costs associated with this. We had a press conference this week. I talked about the impact of this on Oklahomans, what Biden's wanting to unravel, 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Even Democrats in the Senate are saying this is crazy. Democrats. So we're going to see what happens when this goes back to the Senate side. Sort of the suspicion right now is that the $3.5 trillion won't pass because Kirsten Sinema said, I cannot support $3.5 trillion. She didn't say she couldn't support $1 trillion. So now what the thought is they're going to probably take $1 trillion and seed all these programs. And like the late Senator Tom Coburn once said to me, he said, once half of Americans are getting something, you'll never get it undone. And I saw that personally in the first 5 months of this year working on the federal budget. And I looked at the decades and decades of policies that were put in place that we're paying for today that are waste, fraud, and abuse. Really sad day. I don't know how much time we got. How much time is it?
You got about.
Oh, let's take questions.
Okay, is this working, Brian? Because the light's red. Okay.
So as you describe the difference between Trump and Biden, what are the chances that we will have a fair election this time?
Well,
Because that's the reason
Yeah.
that Biden's in there.
Yeah, so let me address it, because one of the things, I forgot to mention this, one of the things we voted on this week because they couldn't get H.R. 1 through, which is completely overhauled in the election process, and the Senate didn't do S 1, which was the Senate's version of that. Remember, the first 1 through 10 bills are the most important things in Congress, both House and Senate. So number one in the House was changing all voting laws, federalizing them. In the Senate, number one, federalizing. And they couldn't get enough Democrats to do it. So that was a great thing. But what we did pass this week, again, straight party line, was H.R. 4. It's called the John Lewis Voting Act. And basically what that does now, it's got to go back to the Senate. I don't know if it'll pass or not. I hold out hope that it won't. I know if it passes, the president will sign it. But again, it's got to have every Republican sign on to this. Actually, it's got to have every Republican plus every Democrat, rather, plus 10 Republicans. It's filibuster. The issue on that is as that any state, it's a voting rights state, which I think I was told there's like 16 or 18 of them, that anything you do to change your voting laws, it no longer goes through the constitutional process, which says the time, place, and manner will be determined by the state legislature. This is Article 1, Article 2 for the Congress and for the president. It now has to do that. Then you have to go ask permission of the Justice Department that you can do that you can actually change your own laws. And so we're going to see where that's at, where that goes. So based on that, we'll determine whether we're going to have free and fair elections going forward. Because here's what we know. We know that there was waste, the fraud that went on. I mean, it's been put out there. We've heard people say, I got 5 ballots and all that kind of stuff. So we got to stop that. We got to stop it. And we know we can because Florida did it. They had their problem in 2000 and they fixed it.
Good morning. How are you, man?
I'm doing well.
Very
It's good to see you.
If you give me about 40 seconds, roughly, to just kind of outline my question for you. I'm in healthcare. I work in healthcare, and one of the hot topics right now is healthcare workers in certain settings being forced to vaccinate themselves. And again, I'm not lambasting or castigating anybody for choosing to vaccinate. That's a personal choice. But for me, that's something that I don't necessarily agree with. I don't want an experimental drug in my body. So one of my issues is Biden came out with an executive order mandating that certain people in healthcare professionals be mandated. And if that didn't happen, then he would withhold Medicare dollars. And so my question is, how does an American president use coercion or executive fiat to, again, withhold Medicare dollars from facilities in which the money that's used to fund these facilities doesn't belong to the president administration? It belongs to the people who pay into the system. So is that not by and large depriving the people who pay into our healthcare system the services that they indeed have paid into a system for lifelong? And then how does he preclude to do that and it be just and fair?
Well, I think it's an outstanding question. In fact, I have said it on, I know, at least 2 occasions in the last 7 days when the President Biden, I think what you're referring to is, so I was with one of the, well, I think it's the largest healthcare system or nursing home system in our state last Thursday. And actually, when I was sitting in the meeting talking to their nurses and their staff, somebody looked at their phone and said that at that moment, it's when the president came out and said CMS would no longer fund Medicaid, Medicare for those who are not vaccinated. Here are the numbers. The numbers are about 80% of the people in nursing homes, citizens of the nursing homes, are vaccinated, about 50% of the staff. To single out a particular industry, first of all, is extraordinarily interesting and sad. Staffing is already difficult in those facilities. And now our seniors, the people that are needing those assistance, are going to have an extraordinary time being staffed. Right. The second thing about this is what the president said, and this goes to your statement. The president said, it's the government's money, we can do whatever we want to with it. President Biden, you can go look that up. That's almost verbatim what he said. This is the problem, and I've said it since I've been there. The problem with Washington, D.C. is they think the federal government has all that money. They forget those career politicians. Biden's been there 47 years. Those career politicians, Pelosi's of the world, all of these folks think that your money is their money. And they spend it how they want to spend it. Because I assure you, if they looked you in the eye, I've told every Democrat when we talk about this, I told the budget chairman, John Yarmouth, I said, we were walking through the tunnel. And I said, can you show me a single Democrat that said raise my taxes? Now, I know him pretty well. He used to be a Republican. He's the only Republican in Kentucky. And I said, can you show me that? I said, you don't have to show me 2, just 1. And he kind of smiled because he knows there isn't one. There's nobody saying raise my taxes to do these kind of things. In fact, most people in America said, just leave me alone. That's right. You're already getting enough. But what you're seeing right now is a power grab on these taxes so that they can do the things you're saying, because these healthcare facilities, that's the only way they get paid. Absolutely. Only way they get paid. It's a sad day. This is another example of poor leadership and not understanding the American people.
And then, really quick, just the second half of that question. What does the state of Oklahoma, do they have any plans from a state legislative policy to combat that executive
That part
order?
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
We'll get Nathan or somebody to
ask Nathan
answer
about
that for you.
Thank you very much. My name's Alan. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Pivoting on the distinction you've been making between kind of the federal government taking all the money and acting like they have all the ownership and all that kind of stuff, and the fact that obviously from the federal government is issuing forth all sorts of nonsense and degeneracy and horrible things from the even when the Supreme Court gets 3 new members and we found out that they're not reliable in terms of things that we believe in. It makes me think that it would be really helpful to, in many ways, turn attention to, at the state level, nullifying terrible things that come out of Washington for the sake of that which is right. Even like Washington and Colorado, they pass laws legalizing, recreational marijuana usage. Supreme Court said you can't do that. They just went ahead and did it anyway. And it seems like that would be a wonderful pattern to begin to talk a lot about, especially at the state level. And I wonder, what could you do, and how can we help you get that idea of nullification established, especially when it comes to something like Roe versus Wade? Because we talk about the tragedy of a dozen service members losing their lives in Afghanistan. Here in Oklahoma, 10,000 babies a year are murdered because of Roe versus Wade, and mostly the narrative centers around, well, we just need more judges. We've tried that. Obviously, those judges are not forthcoming who are going to do the right thing. And so I just wondered how we could make that a major theme going forward. Thank you.
Yeah. What you're describing has been an issue since we were founded, right? Federalism versus the states' rights versus what the federal government's power is. It will be our battle and this is an ongoing experiment, right? If you look at the age of our republic, Ben Franklin once said, "We've given you a republic if you can keep it." The reality is every day is an experiment, and days we move forward, sometimes we take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and I think your example is one of those. We look at Amy Coney Barrett and some of the things that she's done, but we also look at some of the good things they've done in reinstating, just yesterday, the eviction moratorium, putting Trump's era back in, saying the CDC can't use when you have raw sewage, you don't have to pay rent, and conflate that to something with mask mandates and COVID-19. Meanwhile, casinos are having, this accelerating rates of success. Why can't you pay your rent if you can go to the casinos?
That's right.
As an example. The other piece of this is this migration, the Remain in Mexico agreement, which is the single most, that and Title 42 are the 2 single most issues that ever stopped the southern border problems. And they reinstated that. Now, it's only 7 days, but the Supreme Court's taking a look at this as it goes forward. And if we get that, we'll fix our border problems. Those are things that are constitutional. If you look at states' rights, I'm a huge states' right. I'm actually one that says the best decisions are made at the local level. What you all did, those of you who went, that were here, and you did with the city council, that's how democracy is supposed to work. The people have a voice. I applaud what Rhonda's doing in going after and holding city council members accountable, school board members accountable, because I think we've kind of lost that way. We've lost, I don't want to say it quite this way because it sounds kind of denigrating, but the farm team. We've lost the farm team in America, people coming up, understanding civics in America. And I think we're trying this top-down approach. We get bad leaders at the top because we never had great people coming through the system. And they just get in there and they get reelected and reelected and reelected, and nobody can hold them accountable. Once they get to DC, it's so hard to hold people accountable. I mean, I was telling my wife this morning, I can't tell you the countless number of members that I'm Republicans. I'm talking about Republicans. They've been home for 3 weeks. They've done nothing to see their constituents, and they joke about it. These are Republicans. I mean, I don't understand why people. The purpose of the House of Representatives is to get out and talk to people. That's why it's called the People's House. Is to get out and do these things, because you all in a representative republic, you all are looking to be able to communicate to the person who represents you to the republic. It's not a democracy. Every one of you don't have a single voice in Washington, D.C. You rely on people like me. And when I don't do that, you don't elect me anymore. And this whole pushing back, I know that the governor has talked about very recently about investigating all these opportunities they have to set themselves back from federal regulation. I don't know where that's at. So, we can ask Nathan what's going on with that as they go into session. But it's the battle we're going to have until the end of time.
Yeah.
As long as this civilization of the United States of America, the greatest experiment ever that we've ever known in our history of this world, it's the longest surviving Constitution. It's not been changed. It's been obviously amended, but it is an experiment that I see every day, and it's a very frustrating process for a guy like me, who's been in business 35 years. It's used to moving the football down the field, and to see us not move at all and actually go backwards. It's very frustrating.
Okay, we have a question right here. Just a second.
Yes, sir.
So, just hearing yesterday the current occupant of the White House saying that he doesn't take responsibility for abandoning Bagram, that it was the military leadership that told him that that was of no value, which I don't believe. But if that's the stance we're taking, whereas the guard captain that's been deployed to Afghanistan a couple of times told me it's extremely defendable, and instead of going 2 miles to Kabul, he flew 40 miles to Bagram because it's just safer to fly out of Bagram. If that is the case, then, and this is probably a good thing too, if it could happen, can we hold the military leadership either responsible for that supposed decision, or at least highlight it that that's likely not true? Because giving up Bagram gave up Afghanistan.
So first of all, I will tell you, in very loose response, it was a military decision to give up Bagram because of the State Department policy. Bagram, as you may know, if you look at it on Google Earth, you can see it's very big. 2 runways, very defensible, lines that are pushed out back far enough that you can actually defend it, not be like, can you imagine Tulsa International Airport and you're trying to defend that from bad people coming in? The problem was, well, we have 5,000 people around Kabul airport, Hamid Karzai. President Biden's edict is you can only have 600 troops at Bagram to defend it. And the military leaders, I'm assuming, I don't know if Austin did this, but I'm the Secretary of Defense, he had to be the one. He spent almost his entire career in the Middle East. Here, let me just say as a sidebar, interesting thing when Lloyd Austin was being nominated and confirmed in the Senate, the big knock on him is that he spent all his time in the Middle East and he had no experience with China. And here he is, the biggest first battle in his career as Secretary of Defense, and we're a failure in policy, not in the military, but in policy in the Middle East. Everything that we're getting, and I'll just kind of leave it at very high level, everything that we're getting is this is a complete failure on leadership first, Joe Biden getting all this information, and you're starting to see this. You're starting to see the defense high-level generals anonymously say, we shared all this. You're hearing high-level people in the intelligence community saying we shared all this because they're tired of being made fool of. That you can't defend Bagram with 600 people. So we got to go somewhere where you can consolidate people, and the only place to do that was the Karzai airport. There's every military person I've talked to. Dan Crenshaw is a great friend of mine, Navy SEAL, lost his eye in Afghanistan. Mike Waltz from Florida is the first Green Beret. He'll be on Maria on Sunday. Brian Mass, bomb disposal, lost both of his legs in Afghanistan. All these people who've been stationed in Bagram, this would have been a better place to be. But the president didn't want the optics of having all these military people there. Remember, we secured the entire country for the last 9 months with 2,500 people. The entire country. And we've got 5,000 U.S. soldiers there. And I want to share this with you too. Any of you all know what retrograde is? So retrograde is when you're pulling the last boots off the ground in the military. So everything we're hearing today is this will be the last day that they actually pull out. They took 2,500 out yesterday. 2,500 out yesterday, roughly 2,400, 19,000 the day before. But what's going to happen is you're going to slowly start seeing, and you're going to probably see no reporting, that nobody's leaving. And the people you're going to see leaving are going to be military people over the next 2 or 3 days, because they have to get down to 0 on the 31st. So we've got 5,000 or so military men and women that got to be getting out of there. So as they start bringing this down, think about this. There's going to be a moment on the 31st, which Kabul is 9 hours ahead of us, on the 31st, where the Taliban are going to be in the air traffic controllers for that as we leave. Who's protecting our men and women on that way out? In fact, General Milley told us that the most dangerous part of this whole mission, this was prior to these 13 military men and women, or men dying yesterday and the countless that have been injured. The most dangerous part of this mission is not even occurred yet. It's when we retrograde. Because essentially we have no friends on the ground at that point in time. None, zero. So it's a combination of this failed leadership. When you say you can only have 600 people, the military men and women say, if we were given this amount of, again, they're in a support role, and they said, we can't do it. And so the decision was to go to Kabul.
But you can't obviously defend Kabul any better with 600, so
Well, they've got 5,000 there. I mean, they wanted to take 600 out of Kabul and take them to Bagram. They said, we can't split our forces like that.
We have a question right
Yes, sir.
Yes. What are the chances of introducing articles of impeachment for, I'll say his name, Biden? In addition to that, Kamala Harris, Anthony Blinken, Lloyd Austin, and General Milley.
What's that? Well, it's not necessarily not having the votes. The question is I mean, you got to start looking through the process. How long does this take? The safest thing to do is to get him resigned, because that's humiliation. And this is a pressure campaign. When you have Democrats that are now starting to step, Tom Malinowski, who was part of Obama's administration. Let me just say this, because this is a kind of a long answer to your statement. Biden, what people don't realize is about 6 or 7 days ago, Biden showed his true colors. He said he didn't support President Obama's surge. You know, he didn't support going after, you remember these guys are all critical of going after Soleimani and al-Baghdadi because they said that was heartless. Remember that? I mean, that's what they said, right? I mean, he dropped Hellfire on 2 Hellfire missiles on Soleimani. So it's like former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates said, every decision he's made on foreign policy in the last 40 years has been wrong. And so why we're surprised about this, I have no idea. And I think most of us aren't surprised. We're saddened. But the reality is the issue now we've got to figure out is how we deal with this going forward. There is a lot of pressure being put on. Pelosi said nothing about this, if you notice. She talked about diversity and women's rights and WNBA, or that was Biden talked about the WNBA in the middle of all this, holding jerseys up. But the issue is that that's why I called him to resign. There's a lot of pressure. I think I may be the only one in the delegation has asked him to resign, said you should resign, and Kamala Harris should resign. There's a whole lot of things get set in motion. The way the articles of impeachment work, you put the articles on the floor. Speaker Pelosi must take it to the Judiciary Committee, where you have Jerry Nadler. It'll go nowhere. So this will all be stuck in a political process, and nothing gets accomplished. The better thing to do is to keep it out of the political process and put pressure on his lack of leadership, because I actually think this is a bigger part of a bigger plan that we knew he was not going to be capable of leading. I mean, we could see that during the campaign. I think that's why you've seen Kamala kind of stay away from everywhere. I think it's just happening quicker than they ever expected. And so I think you're going to start seeing possibly the 25th be invoked here, and get him to persuade him to step aside. Now, unfortunately, we're going to get Kamala Harris, but then we're going to have a real constitutional crisis. I actually was speaking with some folks yesterday, Freedom Caucus, who've hired some constitutional attorneys to look at this. We do have a little bit of a constitutional crisis here, because here's the deal. The way this kind of works is that she takes over the presidency, and she has to be put before the House will pass it. Then it goes to the Senate. Well, it's 50-50. Guess who breaks the tie? She does. You can't vote for yourself, can you? I mean, we don't know. It's never happened before. And then she has to pick, think about who's next in line. Nancy Pelosi. I'm not sure all the Democrats in the House support her. I mean, she's 82 years old. And then next in line after that is the Speaker Pro Tem. I mean, Senate Pro Tem, rather. And then after that, guess who's next? Anthony Blinken. Then guess who's next after that? Janet Yellen.
We're screwed.
Then after that, you get Lloyd Austin. I mean, it doesn't get better. I don't know who the Secretary of Agriculture is, but maybe he's better. So that's what I'm saying is we gotta be. I mean, I'd rather our president, Republican presidential candidate, run against Joe Biden, because we're going to be sitting here leaderless, and that's kind of scary in this day right now. I mean, I know we are right now, but we don't want to make things worse with all of this stuff going on. I think right now we just got to exploit this, so we got to close our southern border, because if you think ISIS and Al-Qaeda are not figuring out how to get across our southern border, you guys need to think about that one. So.
One more question from Amanda.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. First off, Joe Biden didn't win the election, and so what I think we're watching is political theater.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And the second one has to do, follow up on Idris's question here, on who the FDA has been described as a captured agency. In that, can you explain the funding of the Food and Drug Administration? And the story I read, which I haven't confirmed yet, is that 75% of it, only 25% is government funded, and 75% of it is actually funded by the pharmaceutical industry. And if that's the case, then any decision that comes out of the Food and Drug Administration is compromised. And
honestly, I have no idea, but we'll check on it.
Could you look
I've
at
got
the
Robert's
funding?
back there making notes. We will check on that and report back to you all.
Right, and mass resistance is the answer to all of this, is do not comply, because there's more of us than there are of anybody in these agencies. And that's my statement.
David has a follow-up, just real quick.
My concern is, just to follow up on that, is that we have a new form of discrimination. And it's whether or not you're going to comply and wear the symbol or not, or whatever you want to call it, however you want to look at it. But the thing is, if you will not comply, then we feel we have the right to discriminate against you. We have the right to, because we're the business owners or the military. I've talked to Adam at your office about a military family who's is thinking they're going to be affected by this. That they're going to have to declare their private personal information because the employer demands it, as though they're some sort of a slave and they have to give up their health choice first, and then secondly their health records to the employer. What can we do? What is being done to reverse this trend and protect our rights, our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, to make our own decisions and live as we see fit?
Well, first of all, I see a big lawsuit. You know, here's, if you saw yesterday, Delta is going to fine their employees $200 a month, yeah, for not being vaccinated. You know, this is a tough one, David. You and I have talked about this when I was running, about states' rights, you know, individual rights, and how much we want government involvement in our stuff, and how powerful your voices and your pocketbooks are. You know, I've been one, I got to tell you, from day one when it came to schools, you know, let the school boards deal with it, and you all deal with the school boards as parents. And, you know, move your kids. I think probably one of the biggest things that's ever happened to public schools in a negative way is the mask mandates, because people have moved their kids out. And then with the state changing the way that the money follows the student as opposed to following the school, I think it's probably one of those things that when we look back, this will probably be one of those most pivotal moments in the public schools losing students to private schools because of these kind of decisions. They're not immediate, and they're very painful on the margin. The same thing with what happened in our city council. I am confident that your voices changed the direction of that city council. Now, the governor could have done an edict either way, but we also know that even when the governor does edict, you still have school districts go out and do what they do it in Florida with Ron DeSantis. They're doing it now in the state. Tulsa Public Schools just did it yesterday. And so even when there's those kind of edicts from a higher level of government, people aren't following. So I think those are lawsuits that are going to come about. The military is a little different one, quite honestly. Those of you who have served, I'm certain, 100% certain, that you had shots that you didn't even know what you got. You just got them because you were told to line up and get a shot. It's a different world. And I don't have a good answer for that one. I know that they're making some exceptions. I talked to several military people yesterday in our area that are still active, colonels, generals, lieutenant colonels, yesterday at the State of the State. And They're going to allow some exceptions to that, just as they've always have. And I don't know that we'll know how many people that were accepted. I mean, not had to take the shots. It's all under the guise of military readiness, making sure, whether it was malaria if you went to the jungles, or if it was anthrax if you were going to the Middle East, all these kind of things that have happened. And I see some of my military friends in there shaking their head, and you know what I'm talking about. But as it comes back to this whole issue with local control, I think we have to be careful as Republicans, and this is not critical of anybody who thinks we should do something different. I think we can't allow this time and place to get us in a bad spot as Republicans. Yes, President Trump could create an edict, either you wear a mask or you not wear a mask. But the reality is the best decision, regardless of who the president is, who the governor is, who the mayors are, we can never shirk our responsibility as voice of the citizens.
Right.
We just got to be careful about that. I know it's easy, and I know we want somebody with a higher power to do that, but remember, they're only here for a fleeting moment. They're only here for their term, and then they're just like you again. They're just like you anyway. I'm no different than you. I'm a voter, I care, but I don't really want President Trump or President Biden or whomever telling me what I can and cannot do in my house in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I just don't want it. And I'm going to fight for this. I think it gets back to what this gentleman said here about us fighting for our rights in the city, in our counties, in our states, and our schools are so important that we can't allow a moment in time, because we're here on a journey, right? None of us are going to leave here in a way that we think we look like today. And we just can't ever give that up, regardless of who's in charge and regardless of the time. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Guys, we appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. I know you got to get to Owasso. Okay, I'll go through some what do we call them? Announcements, I guess. I forgot. No, I really appreciate what the congressman's doing. I appreciate everybody that showed up the other day at the city council meeting. Showed up in front of City Hall. I do believe that our voice was heard. I do believe that we made a difference by showing up and by sending as many emails and phone calls as we have, and we have to continue the pressure. This is where we can make the change. I had one of my volunteers at the GOP office. She was getting some phone calls because I was doing the rally at City Hall, and people were mad. So there was a couple of ladies that were really mad that I was doing this. Why would you do this? And so she looks at me and she says, "Can't we just maybe focus on Afghanistan or something?" And I said, "You know what?" I said, "While I appreciate that, there's not a damn thing I can do about Afghanistan. I can yell and I can scream and I can holler, and there's nothing that I can do. But I can affect change in the city of Tulsa. And that's where we're going to do it. And that's where we're going to take this battle, because for so long we've been focused on Washington, D.C., or we've been focused on the state, and we've completely forgotten about our own backyard." So I will tell you that as the Republican chairman, I am not getting involved in any races other than the city council and the school board. And once you guys have decided who the nominees are for the rest of the races, which is the primaries, then we get 110% behind whoever our candidate is. But I am not going to become distracted or anything in what our goal is. And our goal in Tulsa, in the city of Tulsa, is to take those 2 school board seats that are up and to take at least 3 of the Democrats' city council seats. We can do this in 2022. We can take Tulsa back. We can make Tulsa, we can flip Tulsa. So that's what our message is going to be, is take back Tulsa. because it's going to require all of us. It's going to require all of us showing up at the city hall and protesting. It's going to require us showing up at school board meetings. It's going to require us getting out and knocking doors for candidates and making sure that we get our people out to vote. This is something that is very achievable if we're all focused and we all work together and not fight one another like we tend to do. If we can agree to get behind one candidate, we can make this happen. One candidate in each race. And we do have a plan. We do have a plan for that. And part of that plan is, of course, it requires money. So all of the, gosh. I know. All of the different clubs in Tulsa are using this. It's called Change for Change, because we know that it takes money to be able to be involved in campaigns. And for us to be able to make a difference, we're going to have some funding for it. This is one of the means that we're going to use, and it's called Change for Change. Everybody's got change. You know, if you use cash, you've got change. And so I don't know how you do it, but we go home and we stick it in a bowl. And once the bowl gets filled, we dump it in something. And I can tell you, every year I'll take that money in and I'll have anywhere between $300 and $500. That's a pretty good amount of money to have just for it being change that you don't miss. We also take bills. So not your bills, but dollar bills and bigger. But we have our own bills. So we're going to do that in September for the September meeting for Tulsa 912. We're going to have Jenny White. Jenny has restarted ROPE, the Restore Oklahoma Parental Empowerment. And she's going to talk about parents' rights. You know, back in 2014 when we were fighting Common Core, they had the foresight to pass some parental rights. Because, you know, just like last year when they wouldn't pass certain bills because they're like, that'll never happen. There would never be forced vaccinations. They won't force you to wear a mask. And so they decided not to pass any legislation to protect us. And what are they doing? They're forcing vaccinations. They're trying to force us to wear masks. And listen, it's about personal choice. If you want to get vaccinated, then get vaccinated. That's not my business. It's not your business whether I'm vaccinated or not. You know, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. You don't see us pointing at people and going, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're wearing a mask. But boy, I can tell you, when everybody else is wearing a mask and you're the only one not, you sure get some looks, you know. But we've got to remember that it's about individual liberty and personal responsibility. All of this is. This COVID is not going anywhere. It's here to stay, just like the flu is. It's going to change every year the same way the flu does. There's never going to be a vaccination that is going to eradicate this illness. So what do we have to do? Listen, and this is what's funny. If you watch the Channel 8 interview that I did at City Hall the other day, she says, well, what do you do? I said, well, there are protocols. Let's take vitamin C, D, let's take zinc. Let's eat healthy. Let's exercise. You know what their response was? Research has not proved that taking vitamins will help reduce COVID. That was their, I'm like, that's your response? You know, but it's about us doing what we're supposed to do. And so, you know, that's all I'm going to say about that. But I'm sure there will be more rallies at City Hall because this council is horrible. Yeah. I don't know if you guys watched any of it. Unfortunately, we had some people that were disruptive from our side that I have no control over. But at the same time, you know, people are frustrated, and when they're being treated like children, you know, all of a sudden Vanessa decides, well, I'm not going to listen to any more comment. No, that's not the way this works. But now, did you see what they did? They voted on an addendum that night where they will no longer accept public comment. The only comment they will accept is by telephone or by email. And that's it. So now is that me again? Okay. So you've lost, we're starting to lose our voice. So we're going to have to do something to counter that. We're going to have to let them know that we're not happy about this. But there's a 6-3 split on the city council. We have 3 Republicans, we've got 6 Democrats. We can take 3 of those seats. We can get rid of Kara Joy McKee. We can get rid of Lori Dector Wright. We can get rid of Mikey Arthrell. Those are the top 3 that I think we stand the greatest chance of replacing. And with that, we're going to get busy. And once now, let me explain to you the time frame. The school board is our first concern because their filing is the 1st of December. Their elections are the middle of February. So the school board is our first target. Our second target is going to be city council. Well, city council is a little bit different. They don't file until June, and their first election is when we're doing runoffs from our primaries in August. So who thinks about getting out and voting in August?
No one.
Nobody. What are we doing? We're putting our kids back in school, summer's winding down. Nobody's thinking about it. We're going to make them think about it. Donna?
If we stay with the same council we have now, if they're all going to be elected, who would be next in line to be chair?
I think they vote on their chairman. I think they vote on who the chair is. I don't know if they do it necessarily like in order, like it's your turn next time. I don't know. I'd have to find that out. But
Who's the chairman now?
Vanessa.
Oh, then it's not by seniority because Phil Lakin has seniority on the council.
Oh, was he? Okay. So is that the way it works? Do they vote on it? Do you know? You don't know. Okay. So, just keep the pressure. Keep the pressure on the mayor. I gave you guys the hotline number. Just call the hotline. That's the only number I've got for him. So I'd do that. Send him emails. Guys, and when you send emails, you're gonna hear me say this over and over again. Keep it to about 3 sentences. They don't read the dissertation that you write, and the only person that really reads it is you. And I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just trying to save you time, because oftentimes we think it's really difficult. Oh, what am I going to say? And how am I going to say it? It's like 3 lines. I do not support mask mandates. I believe in personal liberty, or individual liberty and personal responsibility, and da-da-da-da-da. In the subject line, you put, I oppose mask mandates. I am your constituent. And make sure when you sign it, you put your address. Yes, ma'am.
I would say, please vote no.
Please vote no,
Yeah,
right. Well, no, that's what I'm, right.
Please vote no.
Right, please vote no. Tell them what you want them to do, but we tend to make things more difficult than what it has to be, and that's not what it is. So when you make a phone call, same thing, short and sweet. You don't have to talk. And for goodness sake, please be nice to whoever answers the phone, because it's not their fault that they work for somebody that, for the people that are on the city council. Because when we start cussing and we start getting angry, they quit listening. It's the same as real life. And so it doesn't make it, we quit listening. And we are making a difference, though. And we're going to continue to make a difference. And this time next year, it's going to look a whole lot different than it does right now. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. Nothing going on. Don't forget, we got Rooster Days next Saturday. If you're going to get out, come see us. We're going to have a booth. The GOP is going to have a booth. We're also going to be in the parade if anybody wants to participate in the parade. And then we've also got the state fair at the end of September 30th. to October 10th, 11 days of awesome. So we're going to have a lot of fun. I promise you, we're going to have a great time. We're going to irritate Democrats. We're gonna be there, and we're going to represent the party, and we're going to start bringing people in. Yes, Alan.
About the fair.
Yes, sir.
Do you have an answer yet about kind of any mask mandates on the fairgrounds? Do you know that?
There have not been any. No, there have not been any mask mandates placed on the fairgrounds. I would encourage you to call or email all 3 county commissioners and let them know that you oppose any mask mandates. So I think right now they really don't have the stomach for it, is what I'm hearing. But you know that things change. We see how quickly they change. Yes, sir.
I thought the city took over the fairgrounds a few years ago.
Only for, no, that's the county. The county is the fairgrounds. What happened was it was the tax. Is that what it was that changed, where now you pay tax when you buy stuff at the fairgrounds, where before you didn't have to? Only pay county tax. So anything else? You guys have, yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say, I was listening to KRMG during the meeting the other night, and their lovely DJs called those in attendance that were opposed to it idiots. And they don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand. They were very vocal against.
Well, who was the DJ? Was it Russell Mills? Because Russell Mills is all over Facebook, going, oh my gosh.
And so is Dan.
They're KRMG, let me just tell you this, guys. KFAQ is no more. It's gone. It's now a sports radio station. So talk radio as we have known it in Tulsa has ceased to exist. Because KRMG, even though they produce conservative, or they syndicate conservative shows, they're not a conservative station.
Nope.
And they don't have conservative views. And so they're going to say, if you listen to KRMG, they're going to side with Deborah Gist. They're going to side with the city council. And so, yeah, they're all.
Cox. And Cox was handing out checks at Panera. I was sitting there one day, and they were handing them out to Republicans and Democrats alike, just sitting there, and had candidates coming in and taking checks from Cox. That's what KRMG is.
So be careful, just because you listen to Ben Shapiro, or you listen to whoever, Dan Bongino, whoever's on their station, just because they do that does not make them a conservative station. Yes, ma'am.
He's all about the vaccine.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, Loretta?
This year, there will not be shuttles around and to the fair.
Right.
And they have raised parking to $20.
Oh.
That might be something else you'll want to complain about to your.
That's not a bad idea. When you're contacting your county commissioners, because they're going to be the ones that's kind of responsible for that, there isn't going to be a shuttle. So what I would recommend, anybody that's planning on going or planning on working, if you work the first part of the day, parking shouldn't be difficult, because they've got parking on site. There you go. Well, and that's what I've suggested to Mom and some of the ladies, is find a place to park and Uber. Uber to the fairgrounds, and somebody from the booth will either take you to your vehicle, or we can get you another Uber to get back to your vehicle. Because if not, you know how difficult it is if you've got to park, in other parking lots outside, and then having to trek the way in. It's it's exhausting. And so I would carpool, one. And number two, I would, if you're going to be working a later shift, or you're planning on coming in a little bit later, then I would probably park somewhere around 41st and Yale, and then just Uber on into the fairgrounds. Does anybody else have any other questions? Concerns? What's that, Mama?
The sad part is that the poor people, they
Yep.
don't have a way there. I hate that.
Well, we're not letting you drive them, Mom. I'm just throwing that out right there. You don't get to drive them.
Is the bus service gonna run back, so there's no shuttle buses?
There's supposed to be free on-site parking where I guess the racetrack was, okay? But you're going to have to get there early because I'm sure it's going to fill up pretty quick, you know. And so then and then there's parking that's the little bit closer that I think that's where they're going to charge the $20 for, and probably back on the backside as well. But you know, it's unfortunate because $20 is a lot for you to park your vehicle. And then to get into the fair, and then all the money that you spend once you're there. But I guess if you saved it up from last year when we didn't have a fair, you might have, maybe that's what they're counting on. But it is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get to talk to a lot of people, and we're excited about it. So, but there is no charge for Rooster Days, so y'all come on out and see us at Rooster Days. Yes, ma'am.
Would you remind us where we can get fair tickets?
Mattress World, Mattress Firm, I think oh, that's right, Mattress Firm, I think it is, that's giving away free tickets to the fair. So,
Mattress Firm?
yep. You can get a pass. You can get a week or the whole pass for the whole thing for like $50, you know, and that gets you into the fair, and I think that's rides and everything as well. So it's a mega pass, and those are available through the end of the month, this month.
But just regular early tickets are done.
Right. So, if you guys don't have any other questions, if you're not on the 912 email list, go to tulsa912project.com and sign up for the email list. If you're not on the Republican Party list, go to tulsagop.org and sign up to get involved, and I'll get you on the email list. I'm an activist that just happens to be the county chairman. So I can't just sit by and let things happen. We have to be active, and I have to train people and teach you guys what the processes are. I feel like that's my responsibility, and then to provide you with the resources for you to do what you need to do, which is, of course, make the phone calls, write the emails, and show up sometimes whenever we have to show a little civil disobedience. So.
Did any of the city councilors give you an idea of how many emails they received over the?
No, but I'll reach out and find out. I'll reach out. Yesterday, like I said, I got one email that says you need to apologize to the Republican counselors for the behavior of some in the room.
That was part of it. There are regular citizens, one part of any group that are.
That's right. No, and that's it. And but because it was us doing the rally outside, they wanted to show trying to associate it, and they're not our people that did that. Yes, Mike.
I was there giving presentations. My wife did a much better job at giving presentations when the issue was on the other side, when the liberals were all outraged. And there were no rules, or at least there were no rules being enforced about applauding, and there were no rules about how long you could speak.
Right.
You could speak forever as long as you were saying what the Democrats on the city council like to hear.
Yes.
You could talk as long as you want. In fact, there was rule against doing this, pointing at your wrist, meaning this is my wristwatch, and this person's going overtime. There was a rule against pointing at your wristwatch.
Well, because we're children, and we don't know, we have to have them tell us how to behave. It's unfortunate, when you watch the behavior of Vanessa Hall Harper. That was. No, well, and she didn't do anything when the other side got up and spoke either. But one of the complaints that I heard,
Stop the public comments.
yeah. One of the things I heard a complaint about, and I don't know if any of you watched any of the videos, is the woman, you know, every time somebody would leave, she'd get that can of Lysol and she'd just spray everybody. But she never sprayed when the Dems and stuff were talking. I mean, boy, everything was just fine. But as soon as they get up and boy, she'd spray. I'm like, what is she doing? And that's what it was. She was disinfecting. Yes, yes, Alan.
It may be a sign of kind of they're feeling the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, several times a group of friends and I, we agitated the city council during public comments about allowing abortion, not interposing.
Mm-hmm.
And we all got 5 minutes if you sign up. And now, you know, in the meeting, wasn't it 1 minute?
Yeah.
So
Well,
they're definitely feeling the squeeze, right? Because there's so many people signing up for these public comments.
well, they were feeling the squeeze so much that the rule was you had a 30-minute maximum. Each side had 30 minutes. Maximum any one person could speak was 3 minutes. You had 23 people that signed up to speak, so they each got 1 minute apiece. So they're not even wanting to have to listen. And then, like I told you, they passed it where now there's not even public comment. You just have to give them a phone call or an email. So I think there's going to be more that's going to be needed to be done at City Hall.
And when they first passed the mandate in 2020, they didn't even allow any public comment. They only played what was on the recording.
Yeah. So we got our work cut out for us, guys. Just know that, you know, we got to keep going and we got to keep fighting. The only way we're going to win, we don't win if we just sit on the couch and fuss at the television. That we've seen that doesn't work. So does anybody have anything else? You guys have a great weekend, and thank you so much for giving up your morning.